What's up, everybody? Another edition of The Dumbest Timeline. We continue this voyage into exploring the things that make me and my awesome guests feel like they're in the dumbest timeline. This week, we have another wonderful guest. We have with us Sam from WatchMojo. Some of you may have seen us reviewing She-Hulk. You may have seen us playing a trivia game. Sam, it's always a pleasure to have any sort of social media interaction with you. I realize now, as I say this, I don't think we've met in person.
I don't think so either. Thank you so much for having me on.
Pleasure.
We've been virtual pandemic friends, just like
Yes.
on internet shows together.
And I
Yeah,
love it. I have such a fun time every time we do something together. And when I was looking for someone to be on the show this week, I hit you up because I was just like, I feel like you're on the same page with me. We do live in the dumbest timeline.
yeah. There's definitely who knows. There could be worse ones, but this one
Right.
definitely has some hallmarks that are just head scratchers.
So you picked an awesome subject this week, and
hmm
I'll allow you to introduce it. So let's bring that up.
Yeah. So when you asked me to think of a subject that could, indicate that we're in the dumbest timeline, I didn't want to go too serious, but I also, there's some dark stuff happening, and I wanted to get around the periphery of that. So what I landed on was paper straws.
Here for it.
Nothing gets me more frustrated about the state of environmentalism
Mm,
than paper straws being hailed as our savior, our big, bold climate action plan
right.
is just to have your drink get soggy halfway through.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I figured it was kind of like appropriately stupid, but also there is kind of a deeper through line of like, we are, given the responsibility for mitigating the climate crisis with things like paper straws
Yeah.
or, you know, carbon footprints and stuff when it's like, really, I feel like there's a lot more we can and should be doing, you know?
Right, right. And it's true because I know my partner always tells me whenever her and I talk about this, because I remember the first time I ever had to use a paper straw was in New York. Her and I went to lunch with my cousin, and they gave me my drink. And when I got my drink and I took a first sip, I was like, "Something's wrong with this straw." And she looked at me like, "No, they're paper straws." And I was like, "Paper?" I was like, "But doesn't that just get soggy and like swell, like the way paper swells up?" And and that's exactly what it did. And I thought, how is this better? Because when I ordered my second and third drink, they had to give me a new straw every time.
Yeah, I mean, like, the pitch is that they're biodegradable, right? And that's
Right.
good. Like, I'm very anti-plastic. I think we
Okay.
should get away from using as much plastic as we can,
Yeah.
but it should wait until it's, like, in the landfill to start biodegrading, right? It shouldn't be doing it in my drink. And I think they just did not get that balance right. There's eco-responsible plastics they could be using, but they just went straight to, like, "Hey, you guys want environmentalism? We're gonna make your drinks
Yeah.
crappy."
Yeah. Soggy paper in the middle of your drink that it like rubs against the ice and starts to shred. And
I'm just, like, slurping down my ice cap because I can't if you leave it there for too long, you're not getting that bottom bit.
right. That's I, exactly what happened to me. The first drink I had, it got so swollen at the bottom that it just stopped working. And then I didn't want to. I ended up just drinking from the glass. And the next drink, when they gave me a straw, by the third drink, I told them stop bringing straws because that was the. And that's when I started thinking about the metal straws, reusable straws. The rubber, like I have a pack of the reusable ones with a special cleaner and stuff like that. And I remember when I got them, I felt so proud of myself. And there's that kind of false sense of like, you're doing it for the cause. But then at the same time, I'm also looking at major corporations and huge businesses. And then you see things like the space race between all these billionaires. And I'm like, here I was spending $4.99 on a set of straws. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, just and yeah, it gives that, like, sense of complacency of, like, "Yeah, I'm fixing the world," when, like, there's on that scale, there's not much action we can take.
Right.
And meanwhile, I mean, like, the kinda deeper through line that I always get is, like, the the concept of carbon footprint
Mm.
was invented by an oil company.
Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
BP Oil coined the term carbon footprint to put it on the consumer to reduce their carbon waste rather than to ever make it like an institutional thing to address. And I feel like paper straws are just that's where one of the timelines branched off, and we're in that
Right.
timeline now of like, well, it's your responsibility to,
Ah,
not ask
damn.
for a straw. Like, and I mean, I studied environment. I could give you
Okay.
the well, we need to, tax the companies that manufacture plastic,
Mm,
the cost of cleaning plastic out of the ocean
mm.
should be incorporated into making a plastic straw. If it takes
Oh, yeah.
$10 to, pull that plastic out of the environment, it should cost you $10 to make that straw.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they'll find, maybe paper straws will be the better thing. But I mean, the fact that they're I don't know if you've seen that meme on TikTok of like, "Oh, the liberal leaving my body as soon as my straw gets soggy," like
No, I
and it just makes no sense to me that they're handing me a paper straw in a plastic cup.
yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
wow. I honestly, thank you for telling me about the BP thing. That I feel is also a commentary on the dumbest timeline. That the idea that this large corporation, I mean, dumb in the sense that they think we're that dumb, because I feel like that's someone in their marketing department being like, "Hey, we got to figure out a ways to make it so that they stop pointing at us whenever there's these disasters."
yeah, and honestly, like, dumbest timeline, sure, but also, like, a smart move on their part, like, that
Right.
PR person got a
Yeah.
raise, is now working for some bigger corporation
Right.
on Epstein's lawyer team, I don't know, but
Oh my god.
am I allowed to make that reference? That's a
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah, yeah,
unfortunate, I
yeah.
don't know.
I'm just more unfortunate, like how accurate the statement probably is that these people do go on to be more successful. Like that's the thing, and this subject has come up a lot in the dumbest timeline conversation. That greed has made us dumber as a society because people keep making decisions based purely on how much profit they can make, and even across the board, every country is dealing with it. It's not just the capitalist systems. All the systems are still have a lot of greedy people. So you have these examples of people who keep rising in the ranks for making these really unfortunate decisions that affect all of us.
And every decision they make that like, there's one person who made that decision to say like, "Okay, carbon footprint's their fault, paper straws, we're gonna make them hate environmentalism," and, like, every time they make one of those decisions, that person's getting a little further from heaven. Like,
Yeah.
I I'm very conscientious of, like, how I treat people, how I
Yeah.
act, what I do, and, like, I feel bad when I do something that has, like, bad consequences, but, like,
Right.
apparently that's not everyone's MO, you
That
know?
was the kindest way to say someone's going to hell that I've ever heard in my ste a few steps further away from heaven is like the nicest, most polite way. Very
H-E d
Canadian.
H-E double hockey sticks,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, when you 'cause you studied environmentalism, you were saying?
Yes, I did.
And you were listing off a few things that we can do that can help. In general, do you think there are major changes that governments could do, actively do from your studies, from your observations that are I'm trying to figure out because I've every time I had this conversation with friends, I always say, unfortunately, until we can figure out a way to make it seem like there's a financial benefit to trying to save the world, all these corporations will never actually care about saving the world.
Yeah, yeah, 100% of, like, the profit motive just kind of
Right.
squashes any sort of ethical,
Right.
consumption anyone wants to do, whether it's, us being like, "Yeah, I wanna use paper or metal straws," because
Mhm.
we want to help, but then the company at the top is like, "Well, those cost point 0.4 cents more to make a biodegradable plastic
Right.
straw, so wha" and but in terms of concrete actions, I'm, like, really glad you brought this up because
Yes, please hit
this
us.
ties into my work in politics too, but I really believe, and the numbers back me up here, that one of the biggest environmental things we can do is demilitarize and basically defund all of our military and police systems.
Mm, mm,
If you look at it, like the American military is one of the biggest, if not the biggest polluter in the entire world.
hot damn.
Yeah,
Okay.
their carbon emissions are higher than like several nations.
Oh, okay, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah, because they don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
We gotta
uh,
fly 20 jets over here. Let's just fly 20 jets over here. It's like, you don't need to fly 20 jets over there. Yeah, but we gotta have a show of force.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we gotta have our bases here and there, and they've always gotta have their lights on, and that's like, I'm very, we don't want military just for like the human rights stuff that they're
Yes.
doing all over the world.
Right.
But B, like there is a very compelling environmental argument to be made for like these organizations that we're sinking more and more of our tax dollars into are actively hindering our chances at having a better timeline or a better world.
Mhm.
And like, man, if we put half of the resources that we put into policing and military
Mm.
into, grabbing the plastic out of the ocean or, researching ways to make it cost effective to have biodegradable straws and cutlery, like, I'm sure we could get on this so fast, but it's just the systems that organize it all in place say, "No, all the money and resources are going to the military, and you're sucking pop out of a cardboard tube."
Yeah. Yeah. Sucking pop out of a cardboard tube. I That's the title of this one, by the way. So yeah, that is
Love it.
no, that's such a first of all, I never really thought about the fact that, and you know what? I feel like that's another example of what is it that they say? The greatest trick the devil ever played was convince you they don't exist or he doesn't exist. And it's like the greatest trick the military ever did was convincing you, like, we're not really using fuel. Like, you don't think about it when we fly over football games and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, I'm hesitant to say the exact numbers because I wasn't able to pull up an exact figure, but, like,
sure.
the articles I was looking at right before this were like, yeah, bigger than Peru, bigger than, like, all these countries that, are prosperous
Yeah.
nations that just US military already has bigger greenhouse gases, like, don't worry about that, terrorism, right?
Yeah, right.
Never forget, you should
Yeah.
be more scared than you are hopeful for a better world, or I don't know. I get
Dang,
very
no.
cynical really quickly.
No, 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 but these are valid points, and I think, honestly, I feel like it's something that by bringing it up, we make people kind of take a look at it because you're right. I never thought about all the military bases, and it's true. Military bases don't turn off at night. They don't turn off the lights. Hell, they don't even turn off the lights at the stores downtown in Montreal. Sometimes I'm walking by at night, you see lights on. Like, sure, they're lowered, but there's lights on all these stores. These are all small things that we could do to make it better. But then you talk about military bases across the world, and not even just American ones, anyone's military bases. You guys leave the lights on all the time, and yeah, oh, it's because we're functioning and we can't just turn off the lights. And but first of all, why do you need that many military bases in the first place? Because there's active battles. Why are we doing all those things? And then it goes all the way back to like the greed stuff, which I feel that goddamn little thing comes up so much.
Yeah, and this is why, like, I'm really interested in the deeper parts, but also if we wanna bring it back, like, I can go back to paper straw jokes, like, we don't have to fix can imperial foreign policy today. But, yeah, it's just so so interesting how, like, you see things like, "Hey, we should defund the police on a local
Yeah,
level and distribute
yeah,
those resources to the community." And it's like, that is, at its core, also an environmental initiative.
yeah,
Of like spread out the resources, stop giving them to these, centralized military forces who just oppress us and then, protect the city's property or the state's land.
yeah. These are fantastic angles that I have genuinely never thought of. Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, and that's one of the reasons I love doing this show. There's a lot of things that I feel, and I'll acknowledge that I am ignorant to a lot of things because I don't necessarily do all the research. So I take full advantage of speaking with people who know a lot more than me, which in this case is you, and just kind of opening my eyes to stuff like that. Because as a person of color, I've dealt with wanting to see less police and just in general in the streets, kind of just like you see all these stories with like 5 or 6 police officers surrounding one person. It doesn't forget the fact that it's even a person of color. Just in general, why do you need six police officers doing what they're doing sometimes? But then add on the fact that sometimes it's men of color and then it's 6, 7, 8 police officers with 2 of them trying to make sure no one is filming anything while the other 5 or 6 are. And I'm not saying this is happening every time, but it is happening enough that we've seen the videos. And now that we live in a world where those videos are there, you can't deny the existence of these moments. And then adding in this element of, oh, by the way, this is also an environmental issue that we could address if we started to cut back on how much fuel we're using to support all of these vehicles that they're driving around in, and just the different things that you know when you link them together, you start to realize like, oh, a lot of this stuff is oppressive on so many levels, and environmental issues and marginalized groups being treated the way they're treated are all part of a similar problem. And to think that the people at BP are making, and not just BP, but all the other companies continue to make hand over fist money, even during the pandemic, probably made more during the pandemic. And then you hear things like, and once again, thank you for informing me that the idea of a carbon footprint comes from them so that they put the onus on us who are sitting there trying to survive in these unfortunately oppressive situations. And it's just like, oh, and by the way, on top of that, you guys are also the cause for the ozone layer problems and the plastic in the water and stuff because it's your carbon footprint. And it's like, good God.
Yeah, stop using your aerosols, you're the problem, like, no, it
Yeah. Yeah.
and, yeah, these ideas are I mean, before I go into this, I will say, as much as I bring in my environmental knowledge, you in my own arena have acknowledged me on many of the subjects I'm supposed to be an expert on, so I do appreciate this exchange of knowledge,
Love
like,
it.
yeah, you're
Honestly, Sam, I really do appreciate you coming on the show because I really did. Like when you sent me the subject, I was just like, okay. Like I read the thing and I was like, this is gonna be interesting. Like the idea of the paper straws and but then when you brought it into such like interesting positions and added like facts that I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about this stuff, and it really just changes the way I look at this. So thank you for like this show is only fun because I get to speak to people like you. So
I'm so glad to be able to kinda come on and rant and rave because, like, yeah, I mean, I ran for local office
right,
last year in
right,
Montreal, and I was big on, like, defund platform, and then also, it comes into the ideas of inequality through environment and
yeah,
environmental racism. So,
yeah,
you know, neighborhoods are stratified, and even the, like, environmental politicians are giving the best green spaces and the best environmental resources to the richest communities.
right.
And so
That's
here
something
I
I
yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I mean, like, I'm here in Park X, which is one of the most, like, diverse boroughs in all of Canada, and
Yeah,
we're a heat island, People are dying of
right,
heat stroke, and yet the budget's not there for that. It's
yeah.
all going to the police, and I don't know, maybe I should make another paper straw joke, but
No,
I'm
no, no.
it's
You
all
know what? And
connected, man.
yeah. No, but I mean, like that's the thing, when you're talking about I didn't know about and I maybe it was in one of your stories, the whole concrete island idea and having more green spaces in suburban areas and more concrete spaces in urban areas in cities, and why those like what 3 degrees hotter throughout the year on average in urban areas because there's no green spaces to cool down the neighborhoods. And I remember seeing that and being like, I've never thought of the fact that I grew up in an area that is all tall buildings and concrete, and that I was potentially just in a hotter area. Like I was more uncomfortable just for the sheer fact of growing up in a predominantly diverse community like Cote de Neige.
Yeah, and so that's where I'm, like, looking at that, and I'm looking at all the resources that are given to policing, and I'm
Right.
like, there's a connection here. They could spend that money just putting moss on all our roofs, all our walls. It would bring down the temperatures. It would, like,
Interesting.
on a local level, mitigate climate change much better than paper straws could.
Right.
And yet, we're kind of sold this like, well, there's nothing we can do. There are guns, so we have to put like
Y-
20% of Montreal's budget is police.
Yeah,
20%. That's
yeah,
that's 1 out of every $5. I'm sorry,
yeah.
I'm going back into my,
No, 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 keep
running
going.
for political office diatribe here, but, like, man, there's just, like there's so much we could institutionally be doing about climate change,
Yeah.
and there are, a lot of good people doing this work. It's
Yeah,
easy
right,
to get, like, super cynical, like, "No one cares." Like, there are people who care, but just the profit motive that, kind of
right,
splits us into you're getting your plastic cup with a paper straw and police presence 24/7, like, deal
right,
with it,
right,
is just like, there's gotta be a better timeline where we just kinda said, like, "Hey, all the cop money goes to building houses that are eco-sustainable." Like, I don't
right.
know.
Or like, base level income, which is sometimes brought up and discussed. Whether or not that is a perfect idea, I don't know. I haven't done enough research into it, but I can imagine, as someone who grew up in Cotonou, and I know some people who made decisions based purely off the fact that their families were struggling, there wasn't enough money, and they made friends with people who promised them a lot, promised them the moon, and they started doing certain things that on a legal front is probably not in their best interest. And it was hard to watch them make those decisions. But I knew that decision came from the fact that there just wasn't enough money in that household. It had nothing to do with them wanting to do these actions. It had nothing to do with them feeling like this is the right thing to do. It had everything to do with the fact that there's just not enough money in this household to support this family. And I have to do what I have to do to survive. And then you think about, like, well, what if instead of putting, like you're saying, $1 for every $5 out of every $5 into policing, we tried to put $1 out of every $5 into helping these people in these communities have a slight, like a little bit more, so that they don't feel the need to make bad decisions.
Yeah, because like, I mean, in the way that I've seen it through, how I've researched and yeah, just seen anecdotally, crime isn't done by bad people
Right,
or, like, not predominantly, like, there are bad people doing crime at every level,
right,
embezzlement up here and, petty weed dealing down here,
right.
and, one of those is actually a little more harmful to society than selling plants,
Hmm.
botany, as some might just call it, but
Yeah,
and just to yeah, it always kinda irks me to see, like, there's very little thought put into the whole process of, like, well, okay, there are we're in Mo you're in Montreal, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we're in Montreal. I thought so just we've never met in person, so, and the stories here are all about, like, oh, there are gangs and this and that,
Right.
and that's how the narrative they use to, like, spend more money on police, and it's like, well, what do you think would actually reduce that activity? And like you're saying, like, it's not always people who want to do it's not like, "I'm
Right.
gonna do crime when I grow up." It's like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
that's my only option, like,
yeah, yeah,
if there was better funding for community programs, if
yeah.
there was, a community garden where they paid citizens to come in and, like
And grow.
and grow, make food for the community,
Yeah,
like, this is just, like it's almost a no-brainer of, like, nature is really resilient and
yeah,
wants us to help
yeah.
her thrive, Mother Nature, and we're just doing everything in our power just to, like, not listen.
Right. Yeah. We are actively trying to fight against everything that it's trying to do. Like
Y
Mother Nature, the planet is constantly trying to show us, like, yo, it's not going well. And if I could do this if you guys work with me. And then it's just like, I don't know. We kind of all just like having cars and
That'd be really
having.
expensive, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, helping you seems like it's like driving a friend to the airport. No one really wants to do that. It's like, yeah, but homie, that we need to fix this because I can't keep sustaining all y'all, and that's just what it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it's greed and the profit motive, and
Oh
it's
man.
also like, there are studies that continually kind of pop up and then get pushed back down of like,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of times solar power is deemed unfeasible because it produces so much energy that it's, like, negatively profitable or, like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
there's just too much supply of it, so they can't kind of build the scarcity model that they do with oil and gas, and so they're like, "Oh, we can't make money off of that, like, let's just scrap it," when it's like,
Right.
that could be covering our whole electrical bill.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
I've heard about people who have houses and put the panels and then are going into the negatives with it, like, because they're putting the panels to supplement their their electricity use in their homes, and then it ends up putting them in the negative, and people are like, then laws get put into place like, oh, you can't have solar panels on your roofs. And it's like, whoa, what are you talking about? This is working. I'm less of a strain on the system. Yeah, but we want you to be beholden to us financially.
Yeah, yeah, here's your reusable grocery bags and paper straws. You do
Yeah.
that, I'll even I don't know if I have enough time to bring this up, but, like, the city of Montreal doesn't recycle glass.
I know. I found this out recently. Supposedly we have a really huge, like, it was too expensive, so we stopped doing it, is what I was told.
And we're still all throwing our glass in the recycling like, "I did the good thing today," you know, and
Right.
they're just tossing it all into a landfill, like,
Oh
it's the
God.
worst kept secret, you know, like,
Yeah.
my environmental studies, everyone knew it, the restaurants I worked at, everyone knew it, and yet, like, every once in a while, you'll just talk to someone being like, "Really? Like, they should, I recycle every" you
Yeah,
know, like
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm
and
trying to
people
do my
wanna
part.
help yeah, people wanna help, people want to recycle and use paper straws if it'll help, but,
Right.
like, just let us put solar panels up, you
Yeah.
know? Let us grow moss, let us and this is not an admission of guilt if moss and solar panels start popping up around my neighborhood, I have nothing to do with that.
You know what though, Sam? I really hope you do. And I honestly, I want to thank you so much for jumping on this edition with me. It's a great conversation. I honestly, when you sent me the subject, I was just like, oh, cool. Like, this is going to be an interesting one. I never really thought about paper straws as a reason we're in the dumbest timeline, but yeah, I could see that. And then we had such a great conversation. This was fantastic conversation. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this was great. We were able to kinda just, like, yeah, jump in with the paper straws jokes and then be like, "But also, like, imperial
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
militarization, we don't like that, right?" Like, yeah. Oh, this was great. Thanks so much.
To anyone who's watching this, we're all trying to work through it, and I regularly say, and even the tagline for this show is, "We don't live in the darkest timeline. We just happen to live in the dumbest one." And it's okay to feel that this is kind of a crazy world that we live in, and we will figure it out together. Sam, is there anywhere that people can follow your social media content? Because I really feel like you have a lot of good stuff to say, and they should know.
Yes. There are probably too many places to follow my content, but on Twitter and TikTok, I'm Beat Easy, Beateasy, and Instagram, it's the Beat Easy because I jumped in a little late on that one. And, I'll cross post from my political accounts or my WatchMojo accounts here and there. Yeah, follow WatchMojo too. We love posting TikTok,
Yes,
and Brian's often featured on our stuff and
I love
tweeting
jumping
back
on.
and forth with us.
I do. Yeah, a recent discussion turned into one of my highest my highest impressions, over 12,000 impressions from just replying to one of your tweets. So, a
Was
lot
that the
most
Thor one?
yeah, most of it just angry people telling me I'm an idiot. Honestly,
Yeah.
it was
Oh, the
hilarious.
Twitter's great at that.
Yeah, but thank you. Thank you so much, Sam. It was great. To everyone, thank you for tuning into another edition. We'll be back with another one next week. Peace, everybody. Have a good one.
Peace. Thank you.